Hi, Computer Science Discoveries. It is Mr. Willie, and we are in our third week of our COVID-19 distance learning situation. And I got to tell you, I haven't really been able to talk to you guys a whole lot as far as video has been concerned. It's been essentially, hey, go to code.org, work through, and make sure that you're getting what you need. And I haven't got a ton of feedback from you guys, but I think it's important that you at least see me and at least be able to see some of the things that I'm asking you to go do, so that we can go through. So here's kind of a summary of weeks 1, 2, and 3 as we go through here. So I told you guys to go into Unit 3 and to go to the Lesson 1, Programming for Entertainment. And when we go through that, it's a wonderful lesson. It talks about, basically starting to program games and things like that. And as it goes through, it starts to introduce you to all kinds of things. And eventually you get to this hungry bunny here, right? And, when you're running, it says to start the game, hit the space bar to collect the food and avoid the bugs, use the space bar to jump. So you can see, he's going through, he's trying to avoid the snails, jumping through here, right? So you see this guy moving along, and you don't want to hit the bugs or anything like that. So this is really kind of our first take through this, so to speak. So anyways, I want to make sure that you're able to see some of the things that you're supposed to do here. So when we look at the solution here for this, I'm going to show you it real quick here. Maybe, hopefully it loads quick, right? So we see, this whole thing where, to start the game, to collect, to win. So you've got, all this stuff as far as the grass animation. You've got the grass sprites here that show up. And you see the set animations that are going on. You got a velocity of -3 for the mushroom, and that talks about its speed. The scale, talks about its size, and the same thing with, the carrots as you're going through. So you've got that going on. The bees, okay, very important when you create the sprites, and get the set animations that you got this going on. And guys, if yours ain't working right, take a look at what I've got going on here so that you can see maybe where some of you went wrong. But the draw loop is huge. Okay, gotta have the draw loop with the the bunny jumping and the creating the items and all that good stuff and drawing the sprites. Really a cool game to have going on. So anyhow, that was really kind of lesson 1 as far as what they were asking you to do. You want to make sure that if it's touching a bug, you've got, bunny is touching B, set to false, carrot 0, mushroom 0, and all that other stuff. If he's touching the snail, then what happens? He slows down, so his velocity goes to 10, and all that stuff that's in here. So really cool program, really like it a lot. If we go into lesson 2, okay, so we go back and we get into lesson 2 here. Give me 1 second. Next, we've got lesson 2, which deals with plotting shapes. So I want to get into that with you here. So, you get a 400 by 400 grid, and essentially what you're looking at is, 0, 0 is up here, right? And if you look, X is the down, Y is the down, X is the over. Okay, so here is 400, 400. If I can get my mouse to do it. I got 398 for you, but anyhow, and 0, 0 is up here. So, anyways, when you're drawing shapes, we want to be able to make this thing go. You've got this grid up here, and you're able to change your color and your shape and place these. Okay, so really kind of a cool thing to understand how the grid works and to be able to start creating shapes, because eventually you're going to create sprites. You're going to create pictures and graphics that you want to move around. So being able to understand how this whole grid works and how these things are set up is important. So lesson 3 dealt all with drawing in the game lab, and what you're going to do when you go through that is you're going to start dealing with how to draw those shapes, and you're going to use the grid. And these 2 videos, they walk you through and they talk about all kinds of awesome stuff. But eventually what's going to happen is you're going to create your own sprites, and you're going to make sure that you get them on the grid. And it's important that as you go through, that you've got them how you want them, because graphics are important. When you're talking about dealing with games, oftentimes you want to make sure that it looks right, and you're trying to make this flower here, right? And you want to make sure that the square is in front of the ellipses, right? So one of the things that you see here, let's go to the solution here. We want to make sure that this whole thing looks right so that people understand what it is that we're trying to see. So we fill the ellipses with orange. You'll notice, we got them at 150, 150, 200, 150, 150, 200, and 200, 200. And if, I had changed this color, it would be simple to be able to go in there and change it to a different color to be able to make that, flow differently. But we put the rectangle right at 150, 150, and you can see that that's how that whole thing shows up. So really cool piece there, being able to plot. Let's take a look at this for a second. Like if I go in here and I change this to red, okay, and then I hit reset and run, we see that it changes the color. And if I move that rectangle to 200 and we reset it and we run it, it's not in the right spot. So being able to plot on that grid, really important, cool piece of information there. Lesson 4 is going to deal all with shapes and randomization. And when we're talking about shapes and randomization, it's important to understand how to generate random numbers and to be able to get them to show up all over the screen. Now keep in mind the language that you're using here is JavaScript, okay? And eventually, when we get through this, okay, what they're going to ask you to do is they're going to ask you to use, the random numbers to be able to create different things on your screen. And when you talk about like making enemies in a game show up or something like that, okay? So when we click run here, okay, we've got this worm here, and I hit reset and I hit run again, and we see that the shapes are in different spots. And the way that that works is, okay, we've got this random number 190 to 210 for each of these different little segments here, and each time that we hit it, it gives us a different spot. And if we were to hit this thing repeatedly over and over and over and over, it would make it look like the worm was dancing, right? Okay, but it's important that you get the ellipses in the correct spots as you go through here, and that you get the correct colors, for the rainbow as you go through, just to make the worm look good as you're going through. So, this is the first one that they wanted us to do, okay, and we just click that and we see how they're different each time. Now if we go to the second set of stuff that it asks us to do here, we'll see that, hang on one second here, let's let it roll here. Alright, so now what we see is that the ellipses are different shapes, they're randomized. This does not look as cool because when they're all the same and it's moving, the worm looks like it's moving. This, every time I hit reset and run, it changes, the way that those work. But it's important because we've got the ellipse at 100, and then we've got the next piece of it as a random number, 190 to 210. So we've got that going on as far as, where it's going to be. But then we've got a random number 40 to 60 for each position of of the worm. So it could stretch it this way, it could shrink it, it could elongate it. We've got all kinds of different stuff going on. But that's how it should look as you're going through. So that's what lesson 4 was all about there. All right, guys, lesson 5 is all about variables, and variables are important because they are the things that store information inside of your program. So if I want, the guy on my game, let's use Mario, okay? If I want him to jump, okay, and there's the question of, if he hits the Goomba, what happens, okay? Or if he hits the mushroom, what happens, So the variable would be, the mushroom value is size equals times 3 or whatever. It makes him grow, right? So anyways, in lesson 5 here, it wanted you to deal with some random numbers and some issues that it had here, and it wanted you to create, this different face here, and it wants it so that, as we look at this, we have, this goofy looking face picture that shows up. So you got to make sure that your variables, store everything, and you've got your different eye size here. And it's random as we go through, a little different each time, a little smaller there, and that's right here. Variable eye size equals random number 10 to 60, right? So that's the thing that's changing each time because we made it random. Now, if that variable was set to 50-50, it's going to be the same every single time. But really kind of a cool thing that we got going there. So that was lesson 5. Okay, so our last piece that we had here was dealing with sprites and adding text to our stuff here. And you guys were able to create, these alien dudes, and you were able to, create the different spheres and make it look like they're floating underwater and all that good stuff here. And you did that, using the alien and creating the sprite. And then you learned how to use a text feature here. What kind of music do planets sing? And the joke is Neptunes, right? Okay, probably one of the worst Laffy Taffy jokes I've ever heard, but anyways, that's what we're looking at there in regards to that lesson. So adding text to your stuff's not overly difficult, but I know many games you got to give directions to your players and things like that. So you want to be able to have text. That's how you do it with the added picture. All right, so this week we're dealing with lesson 7. And with lesson 7, we have introduced the draw loop, which basically draws things over and over and over. And what we see is my little dudes dancing there, right? So what we see is we've got a function draw, we got our backgrounds and all that good stuff, and we notice that we've got these random numbers for their x position. So they're bouncing back and forth each time that this loop happens. So it's going over and over and over and over as we're running, so it's bouncing back and forth to those different random numbers. So that was kind of a cool plan as far as how this whole thing worked for lesson 7. Okay, guys, and then finally lesson 9 here gives us the final product, the sprites finally moving. And in this case, I've created my spaceships that are flying through space. And we've got the black background that's kind of whipping around, and then what we've got is we've got our ships rotating through space. Kind of looks like maybe they hit an asteroid or something and now they're spinning around, right? And we do that real simple with the draw loop, right? And we've got these ellipses that are bouncing around, making it look like the background is a little yellow dot moving around, right? We did that with, black background, fill of yellow, no stroke, little ellipse, really tiny, moving around, right? 3-3 size, and it's going anywhere from 0 to 400 and 0 to 400. Makes it look like we're flying through space. Then we've got the black ship rotating. Its rotation is +10. So it's, spinning to the right, and it's going, at 10. But meanwhile, if you look at the blue ship, it's spinning to the left. So guys, listen, I appreciate you going through, being tough and working hard through this. I know this isn't the end-all be-all solution for you, but if you got any questions, please email me. Send me a message through Google Classroom. I'll be happy to help you, but we need to get these things done on the next couple of days here. Thanks, and have a great day.